Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we're talking about the Runetagger Rogue Subclass.
Yes.
This is from Griffon Saddlebag Book 1, so make sure you check them out. But if you're new to the channel or the series, what we're going to do is go through all the abilities gained in the subclass. We're going to rate the roleplay, combat, and synergy based on how the abilities gained in the subclass improve on the base class abilities.
That's right.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in our D&D Beyond Sourcebook bundle.
Yeah, that's the big one.
And of course, check out our Patreon. Lots of content coming from that. Subclasses, monsters, magic items, all kinds of cool stuff. So make sure to check that out as well. Mm-hmm. All that being said, let's get right into it.
We're going to start off with our first ability at level 3, which is Impressionist. You gain proficiency in Calligrapher's Supplies and Painter's Supplies. Your proficiency bonus is doubled whenever you make an ability check using either of these tools. In addition, whenever you finish making a mark or a rune with ink or paint, you can imbue it with the effects of the Message spell. When you do, the mark is visibly magical and casts dim light in a 5-foot radius. A creature that touches the glowing mark telepathically hears the message you imbued in it. Once a message is heard, the magic fades from the mark. You always have at least one paint or calligraphy brush on your person and can either create or purchase inks and pigments as part of your downtime activities. You can improvise these tools over the course of 10 minutes, assembling them from objects in your environment.
All right.
So, find you a blueberry, mash that sucker up. You got blue paint.
There you go. Something like that. Also at 3rd level, we have runes, which is another big main part of this subclass.
Yes.
You gain 4 rune points to fuel various magical effects. When you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you can spend 1 rune point to mark that target with a magical rune in a flourish of paint and weaponry. These runes remain on a marked target for 1 minute, even if its magic has faded, or until a creature uses its action to wipe it off. You regain all spent rune points when you finish a short or long rest. When you mark a creature with a rune, you can choose to leave one of the following runes. The first choice is Cryos. Creature can't take reactions until the start of your next turn. The rune's magic fades at the start of your next turn. Hexus. The creature is cursed with an enervating rune. While a creature is marked with this rune, you can use your reaction to activate it when the marked creature makes an attack roll or ability check, reducing the total of the attack roll or ability check by 1d6. You must be within 60 feet and be able to see the creature in order to activate the rune. You can choose to activate the rune after the creature makes its roll, but before the GM determines whether the attack roll or ability check succeeds or fails. Once the rune has been activated, its magic fades. You also have Locus. The next attack against the marked creature is made with advantage, and if that attack hits, it deals an extra 1d6 acid damage. Hit or miss, the rune's magic fades after the next attack is made against the marked creature. So some good versatile options there.
Indeed.
For a variety of circumstances.
Next up is Escape Artist at level 9. You have advantage on ability checks and saving throws made to escape from and resist being grappled or restrained. And when you are grappled or restrained, you can attempt to escape as a bonus action. So it's one of those things that, super campaign, like monster dependent, that's how much you come and interact with that mechanic. But if you've ever been grappled or restrained, knowing it takes your entire action to get thing is really frustrating. You can't do anything else besides just get out. So that's can be very, very helpful when that comes around. Mm-hmm. In addition, you gain a new way to use your rune points. When you're next to a wall or similar surface, you can use a bonus action to spend 1 rune point to place a rune on it using ink or paint. When you do, you become invisible until you move or take an action or a reaction.
All right. Level 13, we get Resourceful. Your mastery over the arts is lauded by friends and feared by foes. Whenever you have no rune points remaining, you regain 1 rune point when you score a critical hit against your creature and when you roll initiative. So 2 different ways to get back some rune points. Yep. Never going to be upset about that.
Nope. And finally, at level 17, we have Lead Paint. Normally illegal, but here it's allowed for your final ability. You're able to apply more ink or paint whenever you leave a rune and use it to expose weak points in a target's defense and guide your strikes. When you use your sneak attack against any creature that has a rune on it, when you do, the creature takes an extra 2d6 damage from the attack.
All right, just a little floor damage bump up.
Yes.
But yeah, those are all the abilities in the subclass, so we're going to move on to the rating portions with our thoughts on this. So first up is the roleplay asterisk, as always. Talking about roleplay, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background, that's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass and how they might improve your potential in those roleplay scenarios.
Yep.
So, all of that being said, You get some interesting options. You get, painter proficiency and stuff. Is great. You do get kind of basically built-in expertise with it. You get, double for those checks. That is going to be very dependent on campaign, I believe.
Yes.
But with your abilities and things, you can maybe lean a little bit more into making it more reliable in general campaigns as well, especially with the message ability.
Mm-hmm.
It can be really good, especially if you're trying to keep quiet. You could scout ahead. I mean, you're a rogue. You're going to usually end up being the scout a lot of times. You scout ahead. You maybe, you don't want to talk to anybody about what you saw because you're trying to keep low profile. You leave a little message. They can kind of follow up ahead of you, touch it, hear the message telepathically. So you're not talking at all. So there's something that's super sensitive hearing or whatever.
Yep.
There's some use with that. It's never really bad to have a way to communicate quietly.
Yes. And
then, of course, always having, paint or a calligraphy brush on you all the time is going to help you do your stuff without having to worry about that can happen. So, interesting stuff with that. And, again, free crafting and stuff you can create on downtime as well. So you're always going to have access to your stuff that you need if you're trying to do stuff like that. Especially, I think one thing that might be easily overlooked is also you have your Thieves' Cant. So if you're trying to interact like in this, city kind of urban environment, or just where other maybe like Thieves Guild kind of people are at, you can graffiti and then make it look like it's nothing, but you're kind of like leaving a secret message kind of deal. So that can definitely come into play as well. So there's some little stuff with that. The runes I think are very niche when they do come up, but there are definitely some options on there that can come into roleplay. I mean, not being able to use reactions, interesting, but it's a very short duration. Some of the other stuff with ability checks can come into play if you're really trying to mess somebody up with something. You can make them kind of fumble or stumble upon in a roleplay environment. The last one with the attack, that's going to fall more into combat, but the other two can have some RP for sure. You do have limited uses with those though, so that's something to keep in mind. And then also too with the escape artist, being able to use a rune and become invisible, it can definitely come into play. I mean, you already are going to be really high stealth, so if you do manage to stumble on that call, you just go invisible and just stay still.
Yep.
You can do that as well. So definitely some uses on here. We went with a 4 in the roleplay. It's got some solid options. They're going to be, I think, pretty solid when they work, but you're kind of waiting for maybe some specific circumstances to come up for those things to help, for some of them.
On the combat side of things, like I said, I think interesting is the best word that comes to mind. You've got the flavor is really cool. Again, like this graffiti artist kind of feel to it with the paint and the calligraphy and whatnots. But the different runes you have access to, and you can take away something's reactions, can be great. Causing extra damage is great, and to me, the locus where you're giving yourself advantage on your attack. So if you can't get your sneak attack any other way, you basically have your own built-in mechanic to give yourself your sneak attack, which is fantastic. Again, with escape artist, if you are grappled or restrained in some way, being able to get out of there with advantage, and there's no cost to you for doing that. You're just used to being mobile and getting in and out of trouble. So that's, again, how often that comes up is going to be kind of depending on the campaign, what you're encountering. But the fact that you'll be able to reliably escape, grapple and restrain conditions pretty regularly is great.
I think one thing with that too, though, is you're already most likely going to have expertise with like acrobatics.
Yeah.
So it might be a little bit redundant.
Maybe.
Other than you can do it as a bonus action, which is really nice because you can still do something with your turn, essentially. But how often is it really going to come up? I think is the real question.
Yeah, that's the question. Of course, resourceful, letting you get your rune points back whenever you score a crit.
Yeah.
And when you roll initiative, if you don't have any, I would have loved that just said...
When you roll initiative, get one.
You get more, or when you get a crit, you get one.
Sure.
Even if you didn't have...
Even if you don't...
Yeah, even if you don't have 0, you've got like 1 left, and you crit, you get 1 back. Because it's one use, and it's a crit.
It's a little awkward, because it's like it wants you to spend all of them and just be on 0 all the time, but then you're like, come on! Like trying to fish for stuff.
Yeah. It's like, but still, I do like the fact that there is a way to get your abilities back, even if it is, you have to roll initiative or you have to crit to get them back if you don't have any. So you don't feel like you'll never get one back if you do feel like you need to spend them all or you really want to. You're not completely out of pocket. And then, of course, the lead paint thing, nothing crazy exciting. But if you do, put a rune on somebody with their You get sneak attack on there, you get an extra 2d6 damage. Nothing crazy, but it's extra damage on top of your sneak attack, which is already your main damaging ability anyway.
Right.
So, again, kind of, it's definitely interesting in terms of flavor. It leans more on the RP side with the, the mobility and the impressionist stuff, giving you extra tool proficiencies and all that kind of stuff. But there's definitely some combat help in there with the extra sneak attack, and the runes all apply in combat for sure. And you kind of have this, the invisible thing with Escape Artist you can totally do to, like, you're being surrounded, you make yourself invisible. They have no idea whether you, like, took off running somewhere or, like, whatever else. You can kind of, and then if you want to, like, sneak attack right back out there when they turn around or whatever, there's some useful things to be smart with that in combat. So we went with 3.5 out of a possible 5 for the combat section.
And just kind of tying into the synergy, kind of just my comments, a lot of times as they do tie into combat and just overall synergy as well. So with that, I think the biggest thing is, my question is, why did they land on 4 rune points? Like, what caused that number to be the one that they chose? Because I don't feel like any of these things are super potent. They can be helpful when they work. I mean, you have stuff like Swashbuckler Rogue, where you can just basically, if you're 1-on-1, you get a sneak attack anyways. So, like, to give yourself advantage is not that crazy. I mean, yes, you get an extra 1d6, but it is what it is. But you can still miss with it, even with that, and the rune is still expended anyway.
Right.
So I don't think it's anything crazy. It does have some nice, floor bump up. 17 getting extra 2d6 from sneak attack. Sure. And it is, you do have to use a rune. That's just like when you use a rune, you can expose it and then use sneak attack. So you're still limited with rune usage.
You are.
And 2d6 damage, I mean, at that point, at level 17, people are pumping out 9th level spells and stuff. Like 2d6. Sure, okay. It's comparatively, people are getting 9th level spell slots, you're getting 2d6 extra damage. That's on a limited use.
This is true.
So you're not upset about extra damage, it's just not very potent, I would say. So there's definitely some interesting options. But a lot of these things, though they are bonuses, they fall more on the minor side of things.
Yes.
And they're pretty limited. Again, like Alex was saying, with the getting the runes back only when they're all gone.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe a little bit excessive, considering how weak a lot of these things actually are.
Yeah.
That being said, they do help you out. There are some nice bonuses to have. The thing with the grappling stuff, sure, when it does work, it's awesome. And restrain is probably going to, come up more because there's more creatures that have abilities like difficult terrain and things that may also restrain you. So stuff like that is going to come up probably more often than being grappled, I would think.
Yeah, that's probably true because there's straight up spells that can cause you restrain with grasping vine, things like that. We can do that. They don't grapple, but they do
restrain. And restrain is worse than grapple,
very much
as well. So I think when it does work, it's going to be great, but a lot of your abilities are tied to the runes, and the runes are so limited. So we went with a 3.5 as well in the synergy. So it's going to be really nice when those things do work out, but how often are they really going to work out in just general campaign settings? That's the question.
Yes.
But I think this is a really interesting, flavorful idea for a rogue, and kind of makes sense, being sneaky and, leaving marks. And I think if you think into like Thieves' Cant and stuff you can do with that kind of stuff is really interesting as well. So that's going to be it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you know when all of our new videos are coming out. Make sure to check out our Patreon. Subclasses, monsters, races, magic items, all kinds of cool stuff on there. We'll be hopefully getting more and more stuff out there. Make it continuously, new content, stuff for you to check out on a regular basis. So check that out. As always, guys, thanks for watching.